Hello, everybody. Having wrapped up Season 2, just as spring training was starting to crank up, I wanted to catch up with Cole Uvila. So I headed out to Surprise, Arizona, and on February 22nd, Cole and I caught up. It was a rare rainy day, so we sat down on the back patio of his rental home, listened to the birds, and talked. We discussed how his abbreviated offseason had gone, touched on some goals he has for the 2020 season, and he shared his thoughts on how much he has grown as a pitcher over the last year. I hope you enjoy our conversation in this bonus episode of Raised Sports. Cole?
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, yeah.
Here we are in Arizona, all these months later.
Yeah.
Catch us up from what you've been doing since on the road with Kayla, driving home after the Arizona Fall League, to now at the start of spring training.
Yeah, so got home in like late October, right at the end, and just took a week off of everything and felt like really unproductive and weird, just not doing anything. It was driving me crazy, but it was just like the best thing for my body at the time. And then a week goes by, I started lifting again, and really, was trying to get after that. So I was lifting like 4 times a week for like the first 6 weeks of the off season, and trying to make the most of that. And then I took 3 weeks completely off of throwing, and then had like a really slow, conservative progression back to throwing. And then, I was just working every night, playing cards from about 3 p.m. to about 8. And then Kayla gets off at 8, so I'd meet her at home, and we would just have nice nights together and talk about our days and go to bed and do it again. That was pretty much my entire off season. I ran into some bad luck in December, and I kept getting sick. I think I got sick like 2 or 3 times in the month of December, and we ended up finding out it was because we had a fan on in our bedroom. So like if you have a fan that's pointed directly at you while you sleep, it just basically just blows like bacteria and stuff down your throat like while you sleep. Like it's like really really unhealthy. So we 180'd on that. We got an air purifier in the room.
Nice.
So and then I stopped getting sick for a long time, and then that was like the first 2 months of my off season. And then we turned the corner with the throwing. I backed off the lifting to 3 times a week, and then we started getting off the mound. So like basically the more they call it training economy. The more training economy I was putting into throwing meant the less I was putting into lifting, and vice versa. Like when I wasn't throwing at the start of the off season, I was lifting more. And so, Rob and I
Rob Hill.
Yeah, Rob Hill sat down, kind of talked about my arsenal and like what do we want to do this year. Through a pitch design session with him and another drive-on employee that I'm really close with, and everything was pretty much dialed. So we were like, I was like, what do you guys think? Should I make the curveball harder and sharper and move less, or should I make it more top down? And they were basically like, listen, I don't think we should touch any of your 3 pitches, and we should look into adding a slider. So for the month of January, I was just working on a slider, basically because a curveball it's a really effective pitch, but it's an incredibly hard pitch to be very consistent with because of just the movement profile. It moves so much that throwing it for a strike consistently can be, if you just come out, some days you'll have it. I mean, you'll just be landing it, and then you'll be able to throw it in the dirt, and those are the great days. But I think, and they think, just a curveball in general has the most like variance when it comes to like command of any pitch. That and like splitters, just because they move a lot, and they're kind of, you can predict them, but it's such a fine line because you're basically like it's like trying to throw a ball in a trash can from like 20 feet away. You gotta land it in there. So they basically said like your curveball's great, and it'll be your fastball up and your curveball down will be your bread and butter for the rest of your career, but it would be nice to have a pitch to lean on in like those 2-1 counts, 3-1 counts, 1-1 counts to kind of get people off your fastball and kind of make them respect, because if you're 2-1, you don't want to flip in a curveball that they just spit on because they're sitting on fastball. So that was their idea, and I started ripping the slider, and it ended up being like nothing insane. It's not like it's not anything special, but it's just it's a pitch that I can throw in the zone more consistently that moves, that isn't straight, and that I'll probably throw it like 10% of the time this year. It's not like something I'm really gonna even stress a lot about. Like there'll be outings I don't throw it at all, but maybe runners on second and third, 1-1 count, and we got some stud up there. It's rather than just laying a fastball, be something to use. So that is what I spent my entire January on, and then started throwing live to hitters up there and testing it out. And it was hit or miss. Like it's a good pitch when I throw it, but it's just with learning any new pitch, there's like a lot of ups and downs. Like some days you just have it and have a good feel for it, and then you think you just have a slider, and then the next day you throw it, it's just like you just don't have feel for it, and it's just like this constant like 2 steps forward, 1 step back sort of deal.
Now, you threw the slider before, and you're referring to it as a new pitch. Have you re-engineered it in some way?
Yeah.
Is it, okay, like what?
So it's funny. So when I went home on the All-Star break to learn a curveball with Rob, he also taught me a slider that same day. That was really good. It was significantly better than the slider I'd been throwing my entire career. And basically we had to face the decision, well, I mean, since I have no breaking ball, let's learn one first. So we had felt, in those last 6 months from June to December that I pretty much learned the curveball, and it wasn't like second nature. I mean, but it's at least trending in the direction where it's not something I need 50 reps a day. And so we took the slider he showed me that same day, and we just started working with that.
How do you feel about the progress from then to now?
Good. I mean, the offseason was really quick because I got done a month later this year with the fall league, and then I showed up a month earlier.
Yeah.
So, I mean, not complaining by any means. Like, I don't want it to seem that way, but it was like really quick, so it didn't really feel like I had a ton of time to like truly get better or like really like nail things down. It was more of like a maintain sort of thing, like just get back to where I was in the fall league, like rest, give my body a second, and then just like get back up to speed, and then kind of treat these 6 weeks in spring training. Obviously, I'm competing for a spot, but also kind of treat it as like an extended off season where, I threw live. I think it was just a couple days ago, and I had 25 pitches to work with, and I was just I spun like 12 or 13 curveballs because I just wasn't. It wasn't where it was when I left off in the fall league, and obviously, if it was different in a game situation, my career's on the line, I wouldn't throw 50% curveballs, but it was more of just something like, I need to hammer this down now in February, so in April when, the games are on the line, it's just second nature, so.
The other thing you had mentioned wanting to do this off season was to put on weight. Mass equals gas, right? How's that been going? And then in conjunction, I imagine, with a lot of lifting early on in the off season.
So I mean, it was good. I definitely have gained some weight. I probably gained like 7 pounds, I would say, from my average when I left the fall league. But the problem was I got sick multiple times in December, which affected my training, and then I didn't mention it, but I got the flu real bad right around my birthday at the end of January. So it was just like a constant thing where it was like I'd start feeling good again and then I'd get sick. And, you learn to train being sick. I mean, it wasn't that, but it's just like really hard to like really get after it in the gym or really get after it in like a throwing program when you just like, your throat hurts and you can't breathe and your head's all stuffed up. So, not making excuses, but it was definitely like a bumpy off season when it comes to that. But I still feel like I made some progress. I definitely feel stronger. My upper body's like filled out more than it ever has been. But I still I think again now, kind of again treating this as like a extended time to get ready for April. I still just need to start really getting after it in the weight room now that I'm feeling healthy. I'm out here in the the warm weather and stuff. So it's a hard thing to balance though, because you don't want to overdo it now and then have to go perform, and then you don't want to go max out on squat and then have to pitch 2 days later just because So it's almost like a ongoing cycle of maintaining, but also trying to ever so slightly like edge forward. So that's where I'm at right now. So I would say it wasn't by failure by any means, but it definitely wasn't what I was hoping this offseason with that.
And what have the Rangers told you about the next 6 weeks or so, what they want you to work on, and then do you have an idea?
So they're gonna sit down and talk to us about stuff like that. Actually, this coming week, so we're having like individual meetings. So I haven't really heard like anything like that, like anything just specific. But I wouldn't expect it to be much different than where we left off, which was just high fastballs paired with the low curveball, being quicker to the plate, and just managing the running game, and then just throwing strikes. So, and that's all stuff that I kind of patterned my offseason around. And I think I'm really probably the biggest thing the thing I'm most excited about for this year is I'm convinced that I'm gonna like cut my walks in half, just be from like an adjustment in like the mental side of the game. I think without knowing it, when I had those like snowball innings where, because like if you look at my outings, I don't know if I've talked to you about this before, but if you look at my outings, if I go 5 appearances and I go 8 innings, I might have like 4 walks in those 8 innings. But if you look, oftentimes it's like an outing with no walks, another outing with no walks, another outing with no walks, and then an outing with 4 walks, and then an outing with no walks. And so like when you widen the lens, you look at my entire season, it looks like I have command problems, but it's really these blow up innings where I have command problems in these short stints. And so a huge part of this offseason was kind of the search for like the root of that issue, and I think it's really just a like a focus slash like consistency issue. So like I rush a lot when things start to go bad. I just get the ball back, step on the mound, get the sign, and throw it. Whereas like I need to like, no matter if I'm about to throw the 9th pitch of an immaculate inning or if I'm about to throw the 39th pitch of a 4, 5, or a 5 earned run inning, I need to like have the same routine every time I catch the ball. And so I just kind of implemented like something that was comfortable for me with that, like into my throwing program. So pretty much anytime I throw a ball, even like plyo balls, like I just stop, I come set like looking at third base, and then I look at the pitcher or the catcher, and then I go. And it's just like those 2 seconds have kind of made the world of difference for me as far as like command with my fastball, which is really exciting. I think that would be if what I believe to be is true, and I can somehow cut my walks even down, 1 per 9, it would be amazing. It's just being consistent. Like Corey Kluber is like the perfect example. I'm not going to bug the guy, but if I ever get a chance to actually talk to him about it, I'd be really interested. But it's just part of like being a professional, part of like being the transition from a thrower to a pitcher, and it's just like it's so more detailed than I ever imagined, and like I'm sure I haven't even scratched the surface. But I mean, if I'm looking at wanting to pitch at the highest level eventually, I just have to start focusing on these things. My stuff is good, but you can't just outstuff people in the big leagues, or even in Double-A. You have to pitch, and you have to think, and you have to control your emotions. So that's a big step for me that I'm excited about, because I've always just been a guy that just grabs the ball and throws it. And I think those days of that being good enough to have a lot of success are probably behind me.
You mentioned Double-A. That seems like the logical place to start the upcoming season, but nothing's set in stone. What do you think about that?
I mean, obviously, like, that's where I'd like to end up, and I hope I break camp there. But I still, like I say, I gotta earn. It doesn't, it's a production game. It's not what you've done for me. It's what you're doing for me now. And so this camp is just as important as every camp will be for the rest of my career. I just gotta keep proving that I belong, and I think if I do that, then there's a good chance I could end up there. But there's no real like lineups have been posted or anything like that, and nobody's said anything, and that all just happens at the end of camp, and they post the rosters and you leave. So I'm I'm looking forward to seeing where I end up. But again, last spring training I got really consumed by that. I got really like in my head about it, nervous, and I was like everywhere I went I was just like, you could probably see a vein popping out of my head just because I was so like worried that every single thing I did was being watched, and because of that I tried to do too much in every single situation, and it was just like I had a really bad camp actually last year. And so by no means am I like comfortable, but at least I have the experience of like being, this not being my first spring training, so I know that the best thing for me is just to go out and pitch, enjoy the time with my teammates, enjoy the time in the clubhouse, enjoy the time in the weight room, and just make the most of it, and then whatever happens, happens.
Is that just experience on your part, or have you talked to people, or like, look, you got to cool it, you can't worry about every single thing like that?
Yeah, no, I mean, to be completely honest, I don't think we've ever talked about this because we never started talking until after this happened, but our pitching coordinator, Danny Clark, I had an outing last spring training where both my innings got rolled, which I don't know if you know that terminology. When an inning gets rolled, it's basically you don't get 3 outs and they just like pull you off for pitch count or pull you off because you're just getting hit around too much.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I didn't get out. I think I walked 4 guys and gave up a triple, hit a guy, might have got 1 out in 2 innings, and I was just like all over the place. And DC took me aside and basically had a conversation with me that I would say changed my career for sure. I mean, he basically was just like told me that I'm worried about all the wrong things, and that if I wasn't meant to be, because for me, especially, it's weird to think about a year ago. And nothing's really changed. Like, I'm still the same guy, but a year ago, I was basically, like, coming into camp, like, as this older guy that had a pretty good season and short season, but still, like, we don't know, We don't know if he's, if it was fluky or what. Or at least that's what I was thinking. I have no idea. They don't tell me what they think of me, But in my head, I was like, I have to be nails. And so I was just pressing, and I was overdoing it. And, DC basically told me, dude, he's like, when you first came in, you had nothing to lose, and you just pitched, and you were smiling, and you were laughing, and whenever you saw me, you would give me a smile and shake my hand and ask me how I'm doing. And now you're walking around like you got something to lose, and that's how I kind of felt in last spring training. It's like there were some expectations, and it's funny. So I have that outing where both my innings get rolled, and DC talks to me, and we have a long talk, and he just tells me to go pitch and to quit worrying about all the other BS. And then I go and I have a 1-inning outing over in Peoria at the Mariners complex that I get 3 outs and 5 pitches. So, and really, like, it's just something that I'll never forget the conversation, because especially in this day and age with all the technology. Mm-hmm. And then in spring training, when you got all these people watching you, there's so many things you can get consumed by. You can get consumed by the analytics. You can get worried about what your spin rate is if it's down this outing. You can get worried about what your velocity is if it's down this outing. You can get worried if the GM's watching you pitch. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of moving parts in spring training, and a lot of stuff that can really get to guys. And for me, almost like a defense mechanism to all that is just to just let it all go. Yeah. Just be in the moment. Just try to smile and laugh and just enjoy the time, because nothing's guaranteed, and I really do enjoy when I'm here. So thinking about like all the stuff that I can't control is just a net negative.
It's funny because this topic has come up over the course of this past season, where there are sometimes you felt like you just needed to kind of relax, enjoy your teammates, enjoy the minor league experience, and that seemed to help you. Yeah,
so it's really easy to get away from it, and I'll never completely get away from it, because that's just who I am as a guy. I'm like very results oriented. I'm very like, what's happening now. It doesn't matter what I've done, and I'm always trying to even I was pretty down on myself about my last live at bats. Which probably if you saw, you wouldn't even have blinked an eye. But for me, my expectations is it was pretty poor. But then I have to remind myself it's February 20th or whatever it was, and I have to remind myself that, it's a long season and this, that, and the other, and then I can let it go. But it's just not letting that snowball on you and then become just who you are. Like, you don't want to be a ball of anxiety in spring training, which it does happen to guys.
So, over the last year and a half or so, what has been something that has really surprised you about all of this journey?
Surprised me? I mean, maybe not for me personally, but one thing that's surprising but also very motivating and exciting is that how quick it can change for certain guys. I mean, Pete Fairbanks is like a great example, and Emmanuel Clase. Those are two guys that broke camp in high A, which I was teammates with, who all were up in the big leagues by June of the same season. And I think I kind of always just assumed the minor leagues was just this like slow grind. Like, you go to A ball one year and then Double A the next year and then Triple A the next year and then the big leagues the next year. And for some guys and guys that are, extraordinarily talented and also just, in the right situation, it can happen really quick. So I think that's been surprising. For me personally, I'd have to think a little bit more. I mean, nothing comes to mind.
You seem to map stuff out pretty well.
So I try.
I was curious.
But see, that's the thing is I try. And I probably shouldn't. That's back to the whole just pitching. Point is I probably shouldn't try to map things out. But yeah, I mean, I definitely have like ideas in my head for sure.
Okay. Any goals for 2020 that you can talk about?
Yeah, I really want my fastball usage to be like right at 50%. I think last year it was closer to 70%. Which the data was obviously a little bit skewed because I basically only had a fastball and changeup for the first, half of the season, even though I was still trying to throw a slider, but it wasn't a pitch I leaned on. So yeah, 50% I think is kind of like the threshold. They actually just had a presentation and they looked at all 10 of the top Cy Young nominees from last year. So it was like the top 5 in the AL, top 5 in the NL. Then they showed their pitch percentages, and like pretty much all of them throw half fastballs, 50% fastballs, which for me seems crazy. I threw 82% fastballs in Spokane my first year, but it's exciting because now I actually have pitches that I can rely on to fill that other 50%. So in my head, it's like 50% fastballs, 25% curveballs, 15 changeup, and 10% sliders. And just a few people I've talked about how my arsenal plays would say that those are really good marks to try to hit. As far as like projecting me to like guys in the big leagues with similar stuff, that's kind of around where they are too. So that's a big one. And then just cutting my walks per 9 down as much as I can. I mean, walks are going to happen, and sometimes there's things as like good walks, rather than, you could pitch around a guy to set up the double play, or if it's runners on third and second and their best hitter's up, you can pitch around him and try to get him to swing at a ball out of the zone and get himself out, but you don't want to just start piping him in there in those situations. So I mean, walks are going to happen, but for me, I just felt like the sporadicness and the inconsistency that we've talked about multiple times, but come up. I just want to, it's going to happen. I mean, it could happen tomorrow, when I pitch, but making those fewer and farther between, like I said, two steps forward, 1 step back. With that is my biggest focus, is just getting ahead early in counts will really help me with that, and that's another big focus of mine. So just first pitch strikes will lead to less walks, and then just mixing my pitches as much as I can.
Thank you for listening to this bonus episode of Raised Sports. To keep up with Cole's progress, follow him at Cole Uvila on Instagram and Twitter. And of course, keep an eye on all happenings around the Texas Rangers. And now, with Season 2 in the books, it's time for my off-season and to prepare for Season 3. For updates on what's going on with Raised Sports, keep tabs on social media. Or if you prefer to get updates in your mailbox, we have a newsletter as well. You can sign up for that over at raisedsports.com. I'm Bob Harkins, and as always, thanks for listening.